The air was thick with antiseptic and dread the morning I went under. I had been dreading the surgery for months, a spinal procedure meant to repair the damage from a brutal car accident last year. The kind that changes everything. I'd been working double shifts at the nursing home, saving for a place of my own. And just last fall, I finally bought it. A 2-story fixer-upper with peeling shutters and a creaky porch. But it was mine. Mine and no one else's. Except I made the mistake of trusting my sister. Her name is Marla. The kind of person who lights up a room. When she walks in, people smile, even if they shouldn't. She's witty, pretty, and poisonous. After the accident, while I was bedbound and barely able to lift a mug without help, Marla had offered to help manage my affairs. I gave her power of attorney, just temporarily. Bills, home repairs, banking. She swore she'd handle it all until I recovered. "You focus on healing, Em," she said with those sugar-coated eyes. "I've got your back." But betrayal doesn't scream when it strikes. It whispers. It waits. The day before surgery, I signed a final consent form, and my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't have time to open. That would come to haunt me later. 3 days after the operation, still groggy in the recovery ward, I asked the nurse to hand me my phone. I had dozens of missed messages, but one stood out. "Congrats on the sale. Bittersweet to see the old place go." It was from my old neighbor, Mrs. Krantz. "Confused?" I called her, wincing at the pain in my spine as I held the phone to my ear. "What sale?" I asked, my voice dry. "Oh, sweetie, Marla didn't tell you? I saw the sold sign come down yesterday. She said you were moving out of state for rehab." My fingers went numb. I hung up. That night, through the pain and the fog of medication, I dragged myself through my emails and online accounts. Marla had changed the passwords to the property portal, but she hadn't changed everything. I found the escrow documents buried deep in my inbox. Signed, transferred, finalized. My house had been sold without me knowing. I wanted to scream, but my throat cracked instead. My heart was pounding. I called Marla. No answer. Texted. Nothing. So I called again. Again. Then around midnight, I got a message back. "Em, I did what I had to do. Don't make this a big thing. We'll talk when you're out." And that was when something inside me snapped. I had always been the quiet sister, the one who blended in, who helped, who forgave. But this wasn't some borrowed dress or broken promise. This was my home, my future, my trust, and she sold it like a handbag at a yard sale. I didn't know how yet, but I would get it back, or burn every bridge she ever built. The hospital discharged me 2 weeks later, earlier than expected, but I insisted. I lied to the doctor, told him the pain had subsided, that I had someone trustworthy at home. But trust? That was gone now, just like my house. A friend from the rehab center, Monica, drove me to what used to be mine. I stared out the window during the ride, my back braced stiff, trying to process what I'd do once I stood on that porch again. My lawyer hadn't returned my calls. My bank's fraud department said they'd investigate. But nothing moved fast unless you had power or money. I had neither, just a slowly healing spine and a growing inferno in my chest. When we pulled up to the house, something inside me cracked. Gone was my sunflower welcome mat. Gone were the pale blue shutters I'd painted with such pride in August. And the porch. She'd replaced the rails. painted them white, modern, cold, soulless. The kicker? There were kids' bicycles leaned against the garage wall. Someone was already living in my home. I shuffled up the path, gripping Monica's arm for support, each step heavy with disbelief. I didn't even make it to the front door before a man in his late 30s stepped out. Short beard, flannel shirt, the kind of guy you'd see holding a beer at a barbecue. "Can I help you?" he asked, squinting like I was some kind of solicitor. "This is my house," I said, voice trembling. "I never agreed to sell it." His face shifted instantly, from friendly confusion to tight discomfort. "Look, I'm sorry, but we closed on this place 2 weeks ago. I bought it from Marla Jenkins. She had full power of attorney. Everything checked out. She's my sister. That authority was temporary. She lied. She had no right." My words cracked under the weight of humiliation. "I'm sorry," he said again, softer this time. "But you'll have to take that up with your lawyer. This is our home now." He didn't slam the door in my face, but he may as well have. That night, I stayed on Monica's couch, my entire body aching, from the physical trauma, from betrayal, from helplessness. She gave me soup, but I couldn't eat. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment I'd trusted Marla. When had she started planning this? Was it after I got hit by that drunk driver? Or even before that? I scoured old texts, emails, anything I could find. And there it was, buried in an email thread from 7 months ago. "If anything ever happens, I know you'll take care of everything for me. Power of attorney means everything, right?" Marla back then, I laughed it off. But now, it read like a prophecy. The next morning, I dragged myself to the local courthouse to pull public sale records. The documents listed the sale price, the buyer, and most importantly, a forged digital signature. Mine. The notary listed, a friend of Marla's from her yoga studio. That night, I called her, and she answered. "Well, well," she said, her voice as smug as it had ever been. "Did you finally see the place? They're renovating the kitchen next week." "You had no right," I said through clenched teeth. "I had full rights, Em. You signed over power of attorney. You were recovering. You weren't thinking straight. I just helped make the hard decision. You sold my life, Marla. My savings. My future." Silence. Then, "You'll land on your feet. You always do. You're the tough one, remember?" I almost dropped the phone from how hard I was shaking. "This isn't over." "Oh, sweetie," she said, with a dry little laugh. "It's so over. You have nothing. And me? I'm just getting started." What Marla didn't know is that I had something stronger than any deed or dollar in my name. I had nothing left to lose, and now I was going to play this game by her rules. Only better. The woman at the legal aid clinic didn't flinch when I told her the story. She'd probably heard worse. But still, her eyes sharpened with each detail I spilled across the cracked laminate desk between us. Her name was Layla Carson, a second-year associate with a streak of justice running through her spine thicker than mine would ever be again. "Your sister committed real estate fraud," she said, straightening her posture. "You didn't revoke the power of attorney, but it wasn't intended for permanent decisions like selling a primary residence without explicit, informed consent." "She forged my signature," I added. "I have a digital paper trail, and the notary? She's her friend." Layla nodded. "That's where it gets interesting." She took the printed documents I'd brought and flipped through them, highlighting lines, marking margins. I watched her like she was operating on my soul, because in many ways, she was. We'll file a petition to reverse the transaction. It's rare, but if we prove fraud and breach of fiduciary duty, it's possible to unwind the sale. At the very least, we'll tie things up in court long enough to pressure a settlement. Marla sold it to a family. They've moved in. It's done. Legally, she said, raising an eyebrow. It might not be. It was the first time I felt hope since leaving the hospital. That night I posted a message on Facebook. Not dramatic. Just a quiet warning. Never give someone power of attorney unless you know what they're capable of behind your back. Especially family. The post blew up overnight. Dozens of comments. Old friends, high school classmates, even a few distant cousins, asking if I was okay, what happened, if I needed help. I didn't want pity. But what I did want was witnesses. So I replied to each one. Short, clear, deliberate. My sister sold my house while I was in spinal surgery. I'm going to get it back. 2 days later, I limped into Marla's apartment lobby with Monica by my side and a recorder. Running in my coat pocket, Marla lived in a sleek high-rise downtown. She liked her life polished. Fake plants, white marble countertops, espresso machines she didn't know how to use. She opened the door like nothing was wrong. Well, she smiled. The walking miracle returns. I didn't bother with small talk. You forged my signature. She tilted her head. You gave me the authority. I expedited. It's not illegal to act in your best interest. You signed my name. The notary was your friend. You transferred the funds into your account. That made her blink. You think I wouldn't find the routing number? It wasn't even subtle, Marla. Her eyes narrowed. You've always been dramatic. Is this the part where you threatened to sue? No, I said calmly. This is the part where I tell you that I already am. She didn't slam the door. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch, which told me everything. Marla thought I wouldn't follow through. She thought I'd get tired. Give up. Crawl away like I always had before when she stole the spotlight, or twisted the story, or made me the villain in our parents' eyes. But she didn't realize the version of me she knew was gone. The M who forgave easily died in that hospital bed, and the one who walked out of her apartment that day? She was going to burn down every lie Marla had built. I didn't hear from Marla for a week, not directly at least. But her fingerprints were everywhere, in the cryptic comments she left on mutual friends' posts, in the not-so-subtle messages from relatives suddenly concerned about my mental state. She was planting seeds, just like she always had. Soft sabotage, quiet discrediting, casual manipulation. I don't know what's going on with M, Aunt Geraldine messaged. Marla said you're confused, still on meds from surgery. And lashing out. The phrase sent a cold ripple through my spine worse than any healing incision. I wasn't confused. I was finally clear. She was smearing me, laying the groundwork. But what she didn't expect was that this time, I'd be prepared. Layla helped me file a civil suit for fraud, misuse of power of attorney, and unjust enrichment. And the moment it was submitted, I sent Marla an official letter, not from me, but from my lawyer. Attached were screenshots of her digital signature, my original power of attorney document with its expiration clause, and bank records showing the $248,000 wired into her personal savings account. It didn't matter that she'd bought a new SUV last week. It didn't matter that she'd posted a champagne brunch selfie captioned, "Blessings on blessings." Hard work pays off with her smug grin kissing the rim of a mimosa glass. What mattered was that a process had begun. A process she couldn't self-narrate her way out of, and just when I thought I'd hit every wall, a quiet gift arrived. The man who bought my house, the one who'd closed the door with apology in his eyes, messaged me. I didn't feel right after you left. Something about all this felt off. If you want to talk, I'm open. No pressure. Brian Marks, he wasn't a villain. He was a pawn, just like I'd been. So we met at a coffee shop on a rainy Thursday. I came with a binder, and he came with questions. I laid it all out. The forged signature, the family betrayal, the fact that he might have unknowingly bought a stolen house. Brian's brow furrowed deeper with every page. She said you were incapacitated, that you'd never recover, that the house was too much for you, emotionally. I was in recovery, I said, staring straight at him. But never unreachable. I never agreed to anything. She lied. He rubbed his beard, leaning back. We haven't fully moved in yet. Renovations are delayed. I still rent my old place. If you file for rescission, I'm not going to fight it. Honestly, if this had happened to my sister, I'd be furious too. For the first time in weeks, I wanted to cry. But I didn't. Because this wasn't over yet. That weekend, Marla posted a video on her Instagram story. It was her, twirling in her apartment, music blasting, panning to the keys of her new BMW, her caption flashing. Tired of being punished for doing what's necessary. Haters gonna sue. I'll just sip. She'd always been a performer. A peacock in a field of doves. And right now, she was peacocking hard. Because she knew what was coming. Layla filed an injunction to freeze her assets. A judge approved. Her bank accounts? Temporarily locked. Her car loan? Flagged. And her new lease downtown? Contested by the financial institution, under suspicion of fraudulently obtained funds. She wouldn't be sipping anything much longer. The final moment of that week came when our mother, who had stayed painfully silent through it all, called me. Em, she said, her voice cracking. Marla told me you were spiraling, but now, I don't know. I just heard from Geraldine. She said you're suing. Is it really that bad? She sold my house, Mom, while I was in surgery. She forged my name, took every cent I had. Silence. Long, heavy. She told us you signed off, that you gave her permission. I didn't. Another pause. Then a soft gasp. Oh my God. She's not who you think she is, Mom. Maybe she never was. In that moment, I didn't care that my mother had believed her first. I didn't care that no one defended me back then. All I cared about now was that the truth was bleeding through. And Marla couldn't plug the leak fast enough. She built her throne on lies, and I was coming to tear it down, piece by piece. By the end of that month, Marla's glow dimmed. Her curated Instagram life grew quiet. The daily luxury breakfasts, the humble brag captions, the casual clinking of champagne glasses, all of it faded. What replaced them were cryptic reposts about staying strong, and the cost of loyalty, and my personal favorite. When you do everything for someone and they turn on you anyway, remember, God sees it all. God wasn't the one who saw it, everyone else did. The court filings were now public record. Friends who once flocked to her for lifestyle tips and brunch invites suddenly started liking my posts instead. The subtle shift in loyalty was a tide turning beneath her feet. I didn't gloat. I documented. Layla worked like a scalpel in a courtroom. She contacted the escrow company, subpoenaed their transaction logs, and discovered something that made even her stop mid-sentence. A second account. Hidden. Titled in Marla's name under a dormant LLC she'd set up years ago. Skyline Horizons. Through it, she funneled an extra $37,000 from the sale, misrepresenting renovation fees and legal processing that never existed. She'd fabricated invoices, faked quotes from fake contractors. Layla's lips curled slowly as she read the file, aloud. Your sister didn't just want to get rid of your house. She wanted to profit off the ashes. My stomach turned, but I didn't cry. Not this time. We filed for criminal fraud. It wasn't easy. Prosecutors are slow. Jails are full. Courts are cautious with family matters. But this was no longer just a betrayal. This was a calculated scheme. One that spanned bank accounts, fake business filings, and digital forgeries. I sat in the hearing room 2 weeks later, watching Marla enter in a beige coat, her hair too neat, her expression composed, but her eyes restless, flicking to the door, then to me, then back again. Her attorney was the kind of man who tried to charm the judge with chuckles and ladies first. It didn't work. The judge, a tired-looking woman in her 60s, stared Marla down like she'd seen this script 100 times before. Ms. Jenkins, the judge said, do you deny forging your sister's signature to finalize the sale of her home? Marla's voice didn't crack. She was too trained for that. I acted within the scope of authority granted to me. Any confusion about that scope is unfortunate, but not criminal. Layla stood calmly. Then perhaps she can explain why she fabricated invoices to siphon profit into a private LLC and deposited $37,000 into an account she never disclosed in any legal documents. The courtroom was silent. Marla blinked. No answer. Outside the courthouse, press wasn't waiting. This wasn't national news. But to me, it was war. And I had just watched my enemy blink under fire for the first time. Later that evening, Monica and I were back on her balcony, the city glowing in the distance, quiet jazz floating through the screen door. I clutched a mug of mint tea like it was armor. Do you ever feel like you're becoming someone you don't recognize? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, maybe you're just finally becoming who you were always supposed to be. I sat with that, let it settle into my bones. 3 days later, I received a letter. Not from Marla, from her lawyer, willing to settle, requesting mediation, potential return of partial funds in exchange for dropping criminal pursuit. They were trying to negotiate. I laughed, actually laughed out loud, because she was scared, and scared people don't settle from strength. They settle from desperation. But I wasn't here to be bought. I wasn't here for hush money or a quiet compromise. Wanted the whole truth exposed, in court, in public, in every place she ever held her head too high and smiled too wide. She started this, and now I was going to end it. Marla didn't show up for mediation. Her attorney did, alone, flustered, and 2 minutes late, holding a folder that looked thinner than her conscience. He slid the papers across the table with a tired sigh. My client is prepared to offer restitution of $90,000 and a formal apology. In exchange, she requests full withdrawal of the civil, lawsuit, and criminal charges. Layla didn't even glance at me before responding. No. The man blinked. No? She stole a $248,000 home, laundered a third of it through a shell company, and publicly defamed my client in the process. We're not here for hush money. We're here for justice. The silence that followed was almost cleansing. The kind of silence that falls after something rots and burns and is finally gone. That week, I went back to the neighborhood. I didn't knock. I didn't try to go inside. I just stood across the street, staring at what used to be mine. The front yard had new landscaping. The door had been painted a sleek black. The porch swing was gone. But the crack in the driveway? Still there. The small chip in the side gutter I always meant to fix? Still hanging crooked. It reminded me of a scar. Permanent, yes. Visible, yes. But healed. Brian, honest, kind Brian, stood at the edge of the driveway when he noticed me. He waved, then walked over. I just wanted to thank you, he said, for what? I asked. For showing me who your sister really was, and for not blaming me. You could have turned this into a war. I smiled faintly. I already have one of those. No need to start another. He hesitated. If the court reverses the sale, I'll cooperate with whatever's fair. I mean it. I nodded. You're a good man, Brian. I wish you'd bought the house from anyone else. He paused. Then, and I wish you'd never had to survive someone like her. A few days later, I got a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying. Emily, I don't know what to say. I believed her. I didn't want to, but I did. And now everything's falling apart. She's not talking to me. Geraldine blocked her. Your cousin Jessica won't even let her near the baby. She's unraveling, Em. But I guess so is the mask. I sat there, listening to it over and over. I should have felt vindicated. But all I felt was clean. Clean of the guilt I used to carry. The weight of always being the understanding one, the fixer, the forgiver. Marla taught me to stop fixing what's meant to stay broken. Then came the court summons. Criminal trial scheduled. 6 weeks out. Forgery. Fraud. Breach of fiduciary duty. Financial exploitation. Marla pled not guilty on all counts. Of course. But Layla was building a case so airtight it might as well have been shrink-wrapped in steel. And I had a front row seat. Get ready, Layla told me. She's going to come at you. Smiles, sob stories, maybe even tears. But that's the sound of desperation. It didn't take long. 3 days later, I opened my email to find it. Subject: Can we talk? Just us. From Marla. I stared at the screen for a full 5 minutes before clicking. You win, okay? You got what you wanted. Everyone hates me. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I lost my job. And I'm probably going to lose my apartment too. Is that what you wanted? To destroy your own sister? We were family. I helped you. I took care of you when you were a wreck. Don't pretend you didn't need me. I just made one mistake. Can't we fix this before it goes too far? She signed it. Still your sister, Marla. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because the courtroom would speak for me. And every lie she told, every dollar she stole, every time she called me weak, would echo back louder, sharper, and more damning than anything I could ever type. The courtroom felt colder than I imagined, not because of the marble floors or the indifferent fluorescence, but because she was there, 3 rows ahead, tucked beside her lawyer, dressed like guilt didn't fit her, Marla wore pearl studs and a navy blazer, her hair slicked into a low bun like she was going to church. She didn't look at me. Not once. Not when I walked in with Layla. Not when the judge entered. Not even when they called my name. She just stared forward. Still. Beautiful. Composed. Empty. The bailiff swore me in. My hand trembled slightly on the Bible. Not from nerves, but from remembering every time I'd sworn to protect her. To cover. For her. To keep the peace. Not today. Layla's voice was even. Razor clean. Ms. Emily Jenkins, can you tell the court what happened on the day of your surgery? I nodded. I was under general anesthesia for 5 hours. My spine had to be partially fused. And during that time, was your home sold? Yes. Were you informed? No. Did you give permission? No. Who had access to your legal documents and accounts at that time? My sister, Marla Jenkins. Layla paced slowly, letting the silence echo. And when did you discover your house had been sold? 3 days later, in the hospital, my neighbor texted me congratulations. Soft gasps murmured from the back of the courtroom. Then came the defense. Marla's attorney rose like he was about to charm an audience at a charity gala. Ms. Jenkins, would you agree that after your accident, your sister supported you financially and emotionally? I stared at him. She offered. I didn't ask. But you accepted her help? Temporarily. Out of necessity. I was bedridden. And in that time, she was granted legal power of attorney, yes? Yes. He leaned in. So, by your own admission, you entrusted your sister with legal decision-making. I didn't blink. I entrusted her with my protection, not betrayal. Then they brought up the text. A vague, offhand message I'd once sent Marla, joking about how if I died on the table, she'd better turn my home into an Airbnb and get rich. Would you say this suggests consent? He asked. I almost laughed. That was a joke, a dark one, because I was terrified I wouldn't wake up. It's not a contract. It's not a signature. And yet your sister claims she interpreted it as blessing the sale. I turned to the judge, my voice steady. My sister didn't interpret anything. She orchestrated it. She forged my name, routed the money to herself, and told everyone I was too weak to handle my own life. She didn't act out of love. She acted out of greed. After I stepped down, they called her. Marla took the stand like it was a TED Talk. Her voice gentle, eyes moist, the perfect performance. I was doing what I thought was best, she said, voice soft as wind. Emily was spiraling. She wasn't herself. I handled the paperwork because someone had to. And the forged invoices? The prosecutor asked. She swallowed. Those were estimates. I wasn't trying to hide money, I didn't want to overwhelm her with details. And the LLC? I made it years ago. I forgot I even used it. Her words hung like cobwebs. Gossamer, insubstantial. But this judge didn't deal in silk. She dealt in stone. Closing statements came fast. Layla's voice cut like a scalpel. This is not a story about miscommunication. This is a story about manipulation. About someone who saw an opportunity in her sister's vulnerability and took it. Not to help, but to gain. Then Marla's attorney tried again. She didn't commit a crime. She made a mistake. A deeply, Personal, emotional misjudgment. Are we here to crucify someone for being overwhelmed? No one moved, not the judge, not me, because we knew the truth. We exited the courtroom that day to cloudy skies. No ruling yet. It would come later, but as I stepped onto the concrete steps, my phone buzzed. A text from Marla. Are you happy now? You embarrassed me. You ruined me. And for what? A house you don't even have anymore? I stared at the message, then typed, back, not yet, but soon. The verdict came on a rainy Thursday. I sat alone in the courtroom that day, not because I didn't have support, but because I needed solitude. I needed to feel the weight of this moment, to let it settle into every space Marla had ever broken inside me. The judge read slowly, with a quiet steel in her voice. We find the defendant, Marla Jenkins, guilty of financial fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and falsifying legal documentation. Each word felt like a slow unwinding of the noose I didn't even realize I'd been living under for years. Marla didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, her mask finally slipping. Not with a bang, but with the empty stare of someone who just lost her favorite mirror. Her sentence wasn't prison, but it may as well have been for someone like her. 5 years of supervised probation, full restitution totaling $248,000, and mandatory financial ethics classes. Her bank accounts were seized, her BMW repossessed, her lease terminated, her social circle evaporated. Friends turned ghost. Even our mother stopped answering her calls after the second voicemail demanding bail money. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. But I did breathe. 2 weeks later, I received a call from Brian. The court ruled in your favor. Title reversal approved. It's yours again. My heart stumbled. Are you sure? I whispered. Positive. I'm staying with my brother for now. Keys are at your lawyer's office. Congratulations, Emily. I thanked him through tears, the kind that tasted of ash and rain and long nights, spent wondering if justice even existed. It did. Sometimes it just needed a voice. The first time I stepped back into my house, it felt smaller, but only because I had grown. The old porch creaked like it remembered me. The chipped gutter? Still there. I decided I'd leave it a little longer. A reminder. A scar, yes, but also proof I'd survived. Inside, the walls were bare, but the bones were mine again. I walked through every room, touching every window, whispering thanks to no one and everyone. I stood in the middle of the living room and smiled. I wasn't who I used to be. Marla reached out once more. A handwritten letter, folded tight with nervous edges. I still don't understand how you could destroy your own family just to get revenge. You think you won, but all you did was prove how cold you've become. I hope it was worth it. I folded the paper, set it in the fireplace, and struck a match, because she never understood. This wasn't revenge. This was redemption. I renovated the house slowly, room by room, painted walls the color of calm, hung up photographs of people who showed up when it mattered, planted sunflowers in the front yard, bright, defiant, stubbornly blooming toward the light. Neighbors stopped to wave again. My mother came to visit, once sat on the porch and cried into her tea. I should have protected you from her, she whispered. I held her hand. You just didn't know who needed protecting. Months passed. The lawsuit faded into local court records, but I kept one framed newspaper clipping tucked into my bookshelf. Woman wins back home after sister's 248K betrayal. Court finds fraud, orders full restitution. Not because I needed to relive it, but because every time I looked at it, I remembered I was not fragile, I was not lost, and I was never the weak one.